This is NightCap with Dr. Nola Haynes, streaming only on the Persist Network.
Hey y'all, I'm your host, Dr. Nola Haynes, national security expert, professor, and your favorite intellectual with just a little extra edge. So tonight we are breaking down in the People's Brief multiple things, y'all. There's so much going on out there in the world, from Essence, I think we did that to death, to Obama popped out, y'all. Obama popped all the way out and he had a few things to say. To the ongoing situation in Ukraine. We're going to get to that. And if we have time, I also want to talk a little bit about the flooding that's happening in New York and New Jersey, and have a conversation about climate denialism and what we just recently saw in Texas. So tonight, I want to get started. All right, y'all. So some of y'all's favorite president popped on out and told Democratic leadership basically to get it together. He said, y'all not doing enough. You cannot capitulate. And one of the things that really stood out to me, this is one of the things that really stood out to me as a fellow Harvard alumni, just like y'all former favorite President Obama. I am very disappointed in Harvard University because first they took a stand. They were the university to take a stand, and all of the other universities rallied around them for them to then backtrack and get rid of all of diversity, equity, and inclusion language and websites pertaining to undergrads specifically, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't matter if it's undergrads or grads. The message is we can put DEI on the chopping block. It's low-hanging fruit. It doesn't really matter. And that is a problem because across the board, President Obama also chastised law firms as he is a lawyer himself. And he, talking about other industries that literally have bent the knee. And if you know anything about authoritarianism, it requires people to be complicit. And so basically what he is leaning into is capitulation is exactly what they want and why dictators and authoritarianism work is because people get overwhelmed. They feel like there's nothing that they can do. But if no King's Day did nothing else, if it did not move the policy needle, it did show the United States and the rest of the world that people are not going to bend the knee. So why are these universities, why are these law firms bending the knee? Like, here's my question. How is it okay for the president of the United States to be able to openly pressure institutions, basically extort them in broad daylight, right? If you don't do what I want, then I am going to punish you. Shouldn't that be the issue? Why is diversity, equity, and inclusion the issue? Right? And I'm going to tell you why it's an issue. Because for a lot of these institutions, and I believe this from the bottom of my heart, they didn't want to do these things in the first place. And that is why it is easy to put it on the chopping board. That is why it is easy to say, well, if we give an inch, maybe he'll give an inch. If we haven't learned anything since Donald Trump rolled down that trashy escalator, is that if you give him an inch, he's going to laugh in your face, honey, and make sure you continue to give him inch after inch after inch. We've seen that over and over and over. So as a Harvard alumni, y'all, I got to tell y'all, I'm really disappointed. I know that our community is really disappointed because it just feels like in the past couple years, the Black community specifically has been under attack in the context of Harvard, from President Gay to, all of this diversity, equity, and inclusion, affirmative action. It's just like we are the favorite, we are the favorite pinata in many ways. You just want to hit and hit and hit, but you still want to hit and hit and hit, and then it bursts open and all the candy comes out. Because, we have a lot of candy and we have a lot of gifts, and y'all want to use our candy and our gifts while at the same time beating us, right? So this is kind of something that has just really pissed me off this week, and I'm very disappointed about it. Where I was proudly rocking my Harvard gear, about a month ago, this week, not so much. So that's so much, what I had to say about President Obama popping out. And I hope that leadership really takes heed to what he's saying. And, I'm going to be honest. I know for a fact that Dems are working very hard behind the scenes. They are working hard behind the scenes in terms of mounting constant lawsuits in terms of trying to stop bad bill after bad bill after bad bill. There's a lot that's going on behind the scenes. But what President Obama was saying, that the Democratic Party should take a offensive posture and stop constantly responding, reacting. What is the pivot here? How are we going to counter what we know is coming? The one thing that we all need to be collectively focused on is how they are going to try to stop voting for 2026, how they're going to continue to gerrymander and rig this election for 2026. We see it coming. And another thing we see coming is them trying to keep Trump in office, or someone part of the MAGA ecosystem in office perpetually. We know those two things are coming. Steve Bannon talks about it all the time. Trump told y'all on the campaign trail that you're not going to have to vote again. What does that mean? Who is out there leaning into that? Who is leading that charge? That is what I got out of President Obama popping out. Okay, like I know there's going to be a lot of people like, oh, where has he been? Why now? Why now? Well, if not now, then when? I'm happy that he came out and he said something. Because while I know for a fact Dems are in the background working very, very hard, there really hasn't been someone that has emerged as a leader. And I'm not necessarily big on the whole leader trope. I've never been one to believe that you have, that you believe in one single savior. I've never really believed in a savior figure outside of the savior. So for me to say this, you know what I'm saying? Like someone who doesn't actually really believe in that concept, I'm saying there hasn't been a clear leader that's emerged for people to rally around. And this is definitely one of those moments where people need someone to emerge to rally around. All right, next topic. Now, for folks who watch NightCap, you know that I'm a foreign policy, national security person, and I am always going to keep you informed about what's happening in Ukraine. So recently, my very good friend Terrell Starr stopped by CNN and had a conversation about what is happening in Ukraine. And because we're so focused on so many different things, we're not necessarily paying attention. And so I'll just give you a quick rundown. Last week, I talked to you all about how there was a decision that Trump made, an impromptu decision that Trump made. I call it his petty foreign policy, where after Zelensky upset him in a in-person meeting, he stopped sending Ukraine weapons. But there's a little bit more to the story than that. There's also an issue around our stockpile capacity, especially around Patriot missiles. And then Vladimir Putin upset Donald Trump. So then he said, oh, okay, so we're really not besties the way that I thought we were, which we had been telling him for years, including the intelligence community. But no, he wanted to believe that Putin was his bestie. So then he said, we're going to start sending weapons to Ukraine. And that was an offensive tranche of weapons, a defensive tranche of weapons. And so then the other day, Trump announced that we're sending offensive weapons. And I can tell you, in the Biden administration, there was a lot of conversation around, should we send Ukraine offensive weapons? Because is that crossing a red line? There's one thing to have weapons to defend yourself, but to send a capability where Ukraine can launch attacks into Russia is another thing. Now, what Ukraine does with Ukrainian weapons, that's different. But with the U.S. written across, the weapons, that means that we are being complicit in helping Ukraine offensively attack Russia. So Trump said, oh, well, Putin upset me, so therefore I'm going to send them defensive and offensive weapons, which is good. But it's the reasons behind it. This impulsive nature of Trump, this petty nature of Trump that disrupts an international system that is built on predictability. And this is what Terrell talks about in a CNN interview towards the last part.
I don't believe that Trump particularly has a strategy, because if you saw on Friday, a lot of the expertise at the State Department was fired. So he doesn't have keen people who really understand what's going on here. His envoy to Ukraine is a real estate guy. He doesn't have any knowledge of foreign affairs. And so we don't particularly know what Trump is thinking. Everything seems to be very impulsive. It seems like it's minute to minute. He sees something on TV and it just sparks him to say, oh, we need to do this. So it's this, again, it goes back to the issue of predictability. No one knows exactly what this guy is thinking, but what we do know is that the Ukrainians are evolving their defense posture and their strategy around this unpredictability. And so you see the increase of the defense industry, people doing things more internally to build up their own infrastructure because they realize they can't trust the West anymore. So if anything has shifted on either side, it's been Ukrainians understanding that they can only depend on themselves because the unpredictability of the West is causing a severe loss of life here.
Yes.
How predictability is important. Predictability is actually what keeps us safe. Predictability is why the international system was built as it is. It's a reason why the UN exists. It's a reason why, all of these institutions from the ICC, it's a reason why this apparatus exists. Predictability. Trump uses chaos as a strategic tool. But in my professional opinion, chaos only begets chaos. So when you have an unpredictable actor, a decision maker, the only thing that's going to happen on the other side is that, first of all, other countries are going to partner to work against you. And then there's going to be a military buildup response. And this is what we're seeing as America leans into a deterrence first posture. And as we saw with the firings from Department of State, the dismantling of USAID, we are completely retreating from our diplomatic posture, which is very dangerous. I believe in a diplomacy first approach. I believe in something called coercive diplomacy, basically, which means carrot and stick. But now we are just going with heavy sticks, across the world, being these bullies with this bullish posture against everyone. And basically what's happening is that you're going to have, more countries wanting to partner with China or partner with Russia, or, it's not going to be this idea of looking to the United States for predictable behavior, that's well calculated, that's well thought out. It's more of this petty, impulsive foreign policy. And that is no way to keep people safe. That is not how you do international security. So, we're going to take a look at this Terrell Starr interview. He talks about a lot of important things. There's also some really interesting footage about what these bombings that Russia is doing in terms of bombing civilians. And Putin lied a few weeks ago and said no civilians are being harmed. That is untrue. So where we are now is Trump has said that the United States is going to send why am I struggling saying this word? Offensive weapons to Ukraine, including Patriot missiles. So stay tuned. We don't know what the response from Russia is going to be. And of course, I'm always going to come back and keep you informed about Ukraine. All right. I think we have a few more minutes. I just want to say something really, really quick about the flooding that's happening in New York and New Jersey and relate that to what happened in Texas. I know that this administration is not science friendly. They don't believe in science. They do not believe, they are climate deniers, okay? They believe that the earth does things, that the earth just does things, and it's not this kind of human-driven event where climate says, because of our human footprint and what we do to planet Earth, we are exacerbating what's happening on planet Earth, right? And climate deniers say the opposite. We have evidence, not only just talking about, human error in terms of firing people from the weather system and from NOAA. We're talking about climate change, actual climate change. It has been so hot everywhere. Okay, that's just one example. But the flooding that we've seen in Texas, the flooding that we're seeing in New York and New Jersey, these are situations that happen once in a lifetime, once in a generation, and we're seeing these things happen consistently. We need serious people to handle very serious problems and challenges. And I don't think this administration is up for it, especially when you don't believe in one of the things that's causing the problems. So I'll leave that there. We have a great guest for you all. I'm so excited to talk to my really good friend, Erica Savage, who is the co-host of the Reese Colbert Show on Sirius XM, honey. She is here to talk about some really good news today. And I'm just so excited that she was able to join us. But before we bring Erica in, the one thing that I know that I have to do that my producers would be very upset that I did not do is to let everybody know that I am co-hosting a wonderful event on Thursday with the amazing Katie Fang. We are getting into some really good trouble, y'all, with the John Lewis Day of Action. We are hosting a virtual event, so everyone is welcome. It is free. We chose to do it virtually so everyone can attend. You know, for those of you who may not be able to be outside marching and doing other things, come to our event. We have so many special guests, and I am so excited to be hosting alongside my girl, Katie Fang. And it is a Persist Network event in partnership with West Coast Women Forward and Moms Rising. It's going to be amazing. It's Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be doing that right after I get off of Roland Martin, y'all. So it's going to be a busy night. It's going to be a busy night, but we got to get into this good trouble. And with that, where's my girl, Erica Savage?
I am fantastic.
How are you? I am good, sis. Listen, I believe in transparency, and I need everybody out there to know that my friend, honey, we had a last minute scheduling problem. I texted Erica. I was like, girl, can you help me out? She said, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I can. And guess what? My book drops today. So God is good, and it worked out.
Indeed. And foremost, I want to say thank you again, my dear friend, Dr. Nola Haynes. You're so extraordinary. And I'm so happy that Reese brought us together. As you mentioned, I am a Sirius XM contributor, and it has been my pleasure for now, year 3, to rock along beside her on the Reese Colbert Show. That's every Saturday from 2 to 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sirius XM Channel 126, the Reese Colbert Show. And I also want to say thank you to the Persist Network, particularly Hannah and Devontae, for really being fantastic in how they get everything set up. And so it's definitely my honor to be here. I do believe that God did connect when you were like, yes, God. I was like, He absolutely did this on today. So just a little bit around me. I am a neural performance coach. This is the work that I actually was brought into by way of my brain injury. And before I get into that, before I was a political executive, a global emissary, having been a representative for the youngest nation in the world. And we did incredible work with incredible, well known people, one of them being the now departed Pope. And was very much so key in the freeing of a political prisoner. So, very proud of that political career, not just as an executive, but, as you and I know very well, and people that are connected to this network and people that are connected to this channel will see, doing the on the ground, the literal boots on the ground, like the way that we can actually celebrate and have joy and resilience around that dance is because we have been boots on the ground. So have done that work with the campaign, assisting things of that nature before I actually sat in the seat as the chair as an executive. March 15th, 2021, we had just done extraordinary work, presidential campaign, Georgia senatorial campaign. We're doing work about the code around the pandemic, getting people spun up around what what their fears were around being vaccinated, and really doing the work of breaking down the disinformation by talking with people, and was literally en route and was hit twice by an 18-wheel truck from behind. And immediately my life shifted. In 2021, I was unable to return to work because of the serious damage that my prefrontal cortex and cerebellum parts of my brain sustained, which was I actually became a polytrauma patient with 9 doctors, practitioners, and therapists who were just very frank and said that political executive that you all knew, you're actually dealing with a toddler. And so I had to have home health care, occupational health care. I had to relearn motor skills, speech pathology, and language. Also had to do the work of regaining mobility. And so I was left with, as you talked about, both of us have a brain injury in common, but no two brain injuries are alike. They're like snowflakes. So my brain injury, which is a chronic health condition, left me with many disabilities, one of them being ataxia, which is loss of muscle coordination. So I said all of that to say there was a deep grief around the person that I'd known for many, many years and actually having to accept who I was. So I call it being in the upside down. And then, Nola, I'll just say this very quickly that I believe that what makes me exceptional in the work that I do as a neural performance coach, as a wellness expert, is absolutely the lived experience. But I know what it is to live in the upside down because as all of my friends were going and having appointments with the Biden Harris administration and were having great successes in their professional career, I was laying in the bed, relegated by silence, crying with a suicide safety plan, constantly having either doctors come to me or me, as I was able to tolerate it, going to doctor's appointment because I was having to relearn everything with significant memory loss. So I now, particularly as you just laid out on the nightcap of all of the different extraordinary experiences that we're experiencing, not just as a global community, but specifically in the United States, I have a unique lens, a unique reframe to what it means to live in the upside down. And so the resilience, the courage, the joy, the peace are still things that are within our very purview. We just have to make a decision that those are things that we're actually going to powerfully take control of. And so I'm very happy to present my book and offer the work that I do to the global community at large.
Wow, so many things there. And every single time we talk, it's on a whole nother deep spiritual level. We both talk to a lot of different people in different contexts, but it's something about our unique bond and connection. Because not, we are also going through some real life stuff
Yeah.
together, along this journey, also healing and recovering. And just last night, actually, in the planning group for the event on Thursday, I had an emotional moment. I was missing my mom, and I was saying how special it was for me to be co-hosting this event with Katie Fang because her show, when she was still on MSNBC, her show was the first show I did after my mom died and about maybe 5 months after my brain injury. And I remember being so nervous and so scared because my brain wasn't moving as fast as it was used to moving, right? But my brain injury wasn't really known. I wasn't really telling people, like my colleagues at Department of State knew, because my crazy self was still getting on the plane going to work just because I was just in denial, basically in denial, even with a big old neck brace on, just really in denial and feeling, to your point, not wanting to miss the moment, you know, and putting myself in harm's way because I didn't want to miss the moment. And so last night in the chat, I just got so overwhelmed because I just remember that moment. I was staying at an Airbnb, and that's when I kind of first got to DC. And I just heard my mom say, "You got this, baby girl." And it wasn't my best hit. It wasn't my best media hit, but I did it. And so it was after that that I really had to like start confronting the neural limitations, right? Um, Even though I had to still teach, even though I had to still be functioning just to eat, um, I was going through this massive challenge. and to have you to talk to have you as a resource has been so beneficial for me in my personal life. And I really just want to say thank you. And I am so happy to pivot to talk about your second book. So tell us a little about tell us a little bit about what's different from the first book and why now? Why this book?
Yes, it's definitely my honor, and I love you dearly, and so super proud of you. This second book, the first book I wrote in May of 2023, was a digital guide. It is called A Southern Guv's Green Thumb: 9 Easy Care Plants to Add to Your Space. And it was just an homage to me having been someone who loves silk plants because I traveled about a lot because of my work. And so I was like, silk plants are lovely. They don't have to be tended to, they don't have to be, they don't have to be cared for. However, with the brain injury, one of the things that was brought to my attention was around how healing plants were. And someone who that was not a space that I really taken a lot of time in because that's what I had on my hands, right? I had a lot of time on my hands. So I wasn't able to tolerate screens, blue light, things of that nature. So plants were really, really wonderful. And so I amassed over like 70 plants. But it's in that book that I found that they were so healing. So you did not have to have a brain injury, but if people were looking for a way to navigate through their grief, something that you were intimately connected with, we have to give these emotions a place to go. And there's no one size fit all. However, I knew that for me, through discovering how wonderful and having something to nurture, having something to grow, having something that showed me the elements of time, that a sprout, a seed, something that is put into the ground, it takes cultivating. It has to be in the dark for a period of time before we see what's underneath, which is a flight, a real fight to actually root upwards and then reveal to us what we then have the ability to look at and um, be in awe of and really style around our home. And so I was like, well, this has been helpful to me. So I wrote that digital guide, which is still available on Amazon for $9.99. And it was just a way for people, like, even if they say, no, I don't do well with plants, I'm like, listen, if me with a brain injury, who very much so was opposed to dealing with live plants, can do this, I'm telling you, you can too. So even if you go into your local nursery or your local store to say, hey, this is the plant I want, you can show that nursery representative the plant that you want, and they can point it to you, or that picture of the plant will guide you. So that was really my personal way of giving something back in another way to say, hey, this is joy I found. Join with me in the joy. And then this next piece, Nola, oh my gosh, I'm going to try to keep it together. Um, the Spirit of the Lord gave me this title in 2014. And I was so glad, like, two of my very best friends actually did the creative brief. They came up with this. And Guy Outlaw, who did the cover design, he said, listen, Erica, whatever this is going to be, it has never taken me this short of a time to complete a cover design. This is going to be powerful. And I was just like, wow. And so I tried to write. It wouldn't come together. Fast forward into 2024, some of the conversations you and I have had as friends and as sisters, all of the different significant life transitions that I was experiencing. And it was actually during that time, during the time of the most upheaval of my life. So I've got 2021, the brain injury, all of that, still healing in 2025, still recovering from that, lots of adaptations. And then a significant upheaval happens literally in 2024. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa. And at that same time, I am downloaded with every 23,000 words that came out of my body, came out of my hand, out of my brain, with 9 chapters that I poured into this particular book, The Fight to Fly. So, The Fight to Fly is really about the loss of identity, which is something I believe that each and every one of us can relate to. It's also about discovering resilience in that loss. So it's experiencing chaos. It's becoming very curious and very creative around that particular chaos. And then it's cultivating, it's looking at what does the pivot, what does the new life look like for me? And I just want to say that in that newness, there's a lot of rising and falling. We've heard that healing is not linear, and it's absolutely not linear, just like life is not linear. But it is a way for us to go back to a place where we become very curious about who we are when we remove titles. So no longer am I identified as political executive, no longer am I identified as global emissary, no longer am I identified as mom. I'm not identified when I take away the identities of mom, of sister, of daughter, when I take away the identities that were really top of line for me, because all of those things were literally stripped from me. Some of the memories around that, the ability to function as a mom, the ability to function as the older sister, as the oldest daughter, the way in which I was able to function, all of that was snatched away from me. So, who am I at the core? Who am I? And that question is a question that I share with the readers in The Fight to Fly. I share the pivoting, risings, and fallings, and then I share my reframe. And so this book, this is my proof copy, but it's actually I've already had people. Yes, this is her. This is her. This is
Oh,
her.
that's
Yeah, this is the
beautiful.
proof copy, but my actual copy is coming today. I'm very excited. Emma, it's being delivered today. Um, and I've already had a couple people that have gotten theirs because it was actually made live on Amazon on Saturday. And so I've already had a couple people that have been so gracious and done reviews. But just for the Persist Network, I'm going to give a little sneak peek of what, honey, this chapter one looks like, honey. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. And they're not.
Oh,
Yes,
yes,
honey.
honey.
So that's how you're
Okay.
introduced.
A few
Okay.
cocktails.
Shout out to Outlaw Manifest. So yes, they did an
Yes.
outstanding job. So that was, a little sneak peek for Persist Network audiences. Um, but from the people that have gotten the book, I'm looking at some messages and I'm literally overwhelmed. So people like you and the hundreds of people that did pre-orders, those books are coming next week. I'm personally signing all of them, and then they will go through the mail as I am on the beach. You will be getting those. So, Nola, I think that this book, thank you, sister. This book is for such a time as this. And I absolutely mean that. This book is for such a time as this. It is an easy read. It is about 100 pages. My mom finished it. She wept. She was like literally weeping. And so she just told me that the storytelling was amazing. So I'm saying to each of you all, you can get it from the reframebrain.com. So you can get a signed copy from me, or you can go to Amazon if you want to go ahead and get it in your hands. But this book is for such a time as this.
Oh, that's wonderful, and thank you so much for sharing that journey. Um, I always get so emotional every single time we talk, so I had to step away for a second just to blow my nose because I was crying. Because you always do that to me, Erica Savage. Every single time we connect, it's always on such a deep, deep level. But before we get out of here, I actually want to talk about something that impacts our community
Mm,
specifically. I want to talk about these rising unemployment numbers with Black women, the most educated demographic in the country. We are not only losing our jobs.
mm,
Many of us had those, those public sector
mm-hmm,
jobs, and then the private sector isn't picking us up. They're not responding, right? And so, what does that say to you? And then also, have you thought anything about how we can collectively as a community do something about it?
Nola, that is a powerful question. And when we think about a community that Dr., our friend, and my mentor and business maven, Dr. Avis, talks about, Black women have never not been in the workforce. We've always been in the workforce since we have been since we were brought to the shores of this country. We've always been here and we've always taken care. So the strategy, particularly with how this regime is operating, they're very it's been with precision. They understand that, they absolutely indelibly know that. And so those reports that we've been seeing in the line graphs that we're seeing, where we went from an unemployment rate that's ticking upwards and continues to tick upwards, is intentional. Let's be very, very clear around that. Absolutely, because we are the greatest group that's most likely to participate in the workforce, that we are at the helms of families, we're at the helms of community. And this is also psychological. And it is also speaking to, when you think about heart disease is the number one killer in the United States of America, but it disproportionately impacts Black women and Black men. And why do I say that? Why is that important? Well, because stress raises cortisol levels, which uniquely impacts the brain, because what the brain is saying, where we got to fight, where we got to go, what's next, what next. So it's interrupting sleeping, it's ushering in other diseases. That's why we rank highest in different cancers. So, as our immune system is being suppressed because of intentional oppression, it is then meaning that there are all these other depressants that are being allowed to come in and to stymie and to ultimately kill us. And so, here's some of the things that I've been thinking about in terms of Black women and some of the ways Black communities can actually connect and come together. Something that you demonstrated earlier and you talked about before the show aired, which was breath work. And I know that people say, I've heard it, I do it, yeah, I got it, I get it. But breath is literally how we live. When we think about the phenomenon known as weathering, it's really connected to us not being able to catch our breath. When we look at our community, usually our shoulders are up. We're not even breathing in a way that allows breath to communicate and be routed to our organs, our blood cells, our platelets properly. So even the most basic way that signals life is constantly being threatened. So you talked about box breathing earlier. You were just like, let me stop a moment. Let me take a breath. And so being very intentional with that, because there is a lot going on. That's why the Persist Network, that's why you are in the spaces that you're in the spaces of. And in addition to that, so there's a comment in that, it's not we go totally soft girl era. It's not that we totally stop doing anything. And it's not that we just go hard, hard, hard. It is the way that we create and sustain environments of wellness, which is what the reframe brain methodology teaches. So I said that to say, in the same way that you said, like, being in community with you and I community, we know what those conversations are going to look like. Number one, before you get out of bed in the morning, before you do anything, connect with self. So practice breath work. I have something called the Erica Savage Reset Breath. And if you're interested in it, you can go to thereframebrain.com or send me an email at hello at the reframe brain. What we do in that is that it's a 16-second breath count. And what you're actually doing is you're resetting yourself. When you send me that email, I'm going to send you a digital card that's going to be deployed. Hey, how you doing? Here it is. And then I'm out your inbox. That's all I want to do is give you exactly what you asked for. Hello at thereframebrain.com. In that, what I have had men, because I also work with professional athletes, and I have had children alike talk about the reset that they feel immediately. The second thing is you want to drink water. My dear friend Nola calls me a water snob because I only drink out of glass water bottles, honey. Okay. Okay.
Oh my Lord, that is an understatement. Now, as a snob in other areas, this is your lane. The water lane is your lane. I hope you invest or develop your own.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Hannah. I am a proud water snob. I do not drink out of plastic water bottles. Do not try me. I don't care where we are. I'm going to ask, and Nolan has been there when we have gone. It could be anywhere. And do you have a glass of water? You have glass water. I'm not drinking, honey. Anything that's not filtered and that's not in the glass water bottle. So, amen. That is me. But yeah, all day, every day. But the brain needs, it needs, our body needs water. So first thing in the morning, before you have your coffee, even before you have your tea, before you have your signature breakfast beverage, drink water. I keep water at the side of my bed so that it's room temperature, and that how many ever ounces is not a competition for anyone. Drink at least 8 ounces. Try to drink at least 8 ounces before you do your breakfast beverage. And then the third thing, you might have a lot of people that you're connected to, but know the two or three people that you can call and be very vulnerable with. Know people that they respect you and respect your person enough to not get in the grave with you. What do you mean by that, Erica? What I mean is that you call me, you cry, you say what you say. If you use expletives, whatever you do, I'm going to listen. They're going to be present, but they're not going to get in the grave with you. They're not going to allow you to be in that place and then that be the period. That is you providing an expression, and you're giving your emotions somewhere to go, and also being the comma for you as well. So those are three wonderful, wonderful ways I would offer to the Persist Network and all of those people that are holding up the arms of Persist by either donating, by being connected to different communities where they're able to get the messaging out. The Katie Fangs of the world, the Dr. Nolas of the world, the Hannahs, the Devontaes of the world, everybody that's coming together, the Rhonda Foxes of the world, that these are things that are necessary and needed for us to live and to live well.
Thank you so much for that beautiful, beautiful rundown. And that get in the grave part, honey, we done dug deep. We done dug deep and napped together in them
Mm.
graves, honey. Because I really do believe in being vulnerable and transparent. You know, I I there's a difference to the way I communicate now from how I communicated a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. Sometimes I forget words,
Mm.
and sometimes I have to find a new word, so I have to think a few seconds longer. Or I may stutter or pronounce a word differently. That all stems from my brain injury that I had to get used to, right? Sometimes I watch playback of things, and I hate the fact that I can see myself trying to find a word, or that my speech pattern has changed. But I had to take time with myself. I am still recovering. I mean, the brain injury happened August of 2023, and it hasn't been 2 years yet, and my brain is still recovering, but I feel myself getting closer. And one of the things that has helped is, honey, digging deep, being vulnerable with you, being on those phone calls, and us, honey, going to church, honey. And I don't mean that in just some colloquial Black girl sense. Like, we've had some deep down conversations. And with people, because the way people see you and how real life is are two different things, right? They see us out in the media doing things, making moves, but you don't know the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So thank you for being a really good and true friend. And let everybody know how to get in contact with you on all of your social media platforms. Tell us about the book one more time. And then I am going to wrap the show up, because I could talk to you forever, and we have gone over just a little bit because I can listen to you forever. Because you teach and preach, okay? So how can we find you?
I appreciate you always, my dear sister. It's at thereframedbrain.com, the Reframed Brain on YouTube, on Instagram, all the socials. And then if you want to connect personally with me, it's at one Erica Savage. Send me an email, hello at thereframedbrain.com. I am quite responsive. And please, this is my proof copy, but it's live on Amazon, or you can get it from my website where you get a signed author's copy. This is The Fight to Fly, my personal transformative memoir that is sure to help you feel as though you have someone walking beside you in your own space of pivoting and reframing. So thank you all. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Devontae. Thank you, Persist Network. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Nola.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening to this amazing teaching and preaching session with my girl, Erica Savage. You know, I'm not that big on folks, that call themselves life coaches and all these things, because I definitely believe in, show me your credentials, show me your receipts. Erica Savage is the truth. And one of the things that I love about how she has spent these years really kind of retraining and really digging deep, um, based on her personal experience, she is someone who I listen to, who I respect. And, again, the same way I don't necessarily believe in the savior trope, I don't necessarily believe and everybody and their mama wanting to be a life coach, everybody and their mama want to be a wellness person. That's just not how I operate. But Erica Savage is definitely one of those voices that I tremendously trust. So thank you again, sis, for being able to join NightCap. That was a very special interview. And I just want to remind everybody this Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We are getting into good trouble, y'all, with the John Lewis Day of Action event. I am co-hosting with my girl, Katie Fang, who is also a fellow persister, and it's going to be amazing. We have some incredible guests lined up, and we also have some breath work built into the show. Like, we're actually going to take breaks, and we're going to make sure that people are okay, that they are rejuvenated, especially for the East Coast. Is going to be pretty late. And after being on rolling for ain't no telling how long, because y'all know how long rolling can go, I'm going to need a moment to refresh. So I'm going to need Erica's breathing technique before jumping into the live event. But thank you so, so much for tuning into a very special episode of NightCap with Dr. Nola Haynes. I am your fave political scientist, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Persist on Substack, YouTube, and Instagram.